Chachas, Shetegus, Chichie, Kukpa, Negatans to Skidje, Hantum, Husquitog, Uktam Dwassam, Papa, Tkai, Kokotat, Paishut Hachanatum, Huna E. Tog. Thank you, Creator, and our great-grandfathers and great-grandmother, and wonderful Mother Earth for the beautiful day, for all things green and growing, for the flowing waters and all that it nourishes, for the blowing wind and all that it touches. Thank you for another day to experience these beautiful things. Creator, we thank our neighbors from Paul River, and we welcome each and every one to our traditional territory. Creator, today we lift up our prayers for you, for our children, and the youth of our community, and our neighbors in our First Nations communities. We dare today to pray for their futures. We dare to dream that their futures will be wonderful, and they will have a wide variety of good experiences over the course of their lives, and grow up to do things that will amaze us and amaze them. Creator, pour out your Holy Spirit of wisdom upon us and our youth at this time. Many of our youth are hurting. Their needs are great. Many feel alone, uncertain, and even afraid. We are looking for answers. We need your guidance, your courage, and your healing power to help all of us in our community. We call upon our ancestors for their guidance and their wisdom as we share our history of residential school and colonization experiences. Creator, comfort us as we share our shame and sorrow, our pain and healing of residential school survivors. As we stand together in this place, our nation, we ask our ancestors to come forward and show us their mercy and heal our wounds. Creator, we take this moment of silence for those who did not come home from residential school. We also ask that you bless us with compassion and understanding, that we may look at each other in a more positive and respectful way, as we work together to bridge the gap that has caused our people pain for many generations. Together, let us begin the healing process for the love of all my relations.
Adje Chepot, Tiapthot Kwatnan. My traditional name is Tiapthot, and my English name is Eric Blaney. I am on the Executive Council for the Tla'amin Nation, and my portfolio is Lands and Resources. I'd like to start this video with welcoming you to the Tla'amin Nation team. It's very exciting to have new staff join us on our journey here as we build our governance and build our team and build our path forward to self-governance. Our nation is a modern treaty nation, and we are growing rapidly in our region and abroad. We have just over 700 of our citizens living here in the community, and we have about 600 citizens living out of community. They are our Tuwisht, and we have people all over the place. So welcome to the Tla'amin community, and welcome to the team, and welcome to the workplace. This building that we have erected here is called Governance House. We are no longer a band office, and as a self-governing nation, we take pride in this governance house where we meet and where we gather and where we perform the duties of the government for the Tla'amin Nation. So what we're going to talk about today is a little bit about the training that you're going to be taking as part of a new team member for the Tla'amin Nation, and learn a little bit about us and a little bit about our history and who we are and where we come from. But first of all, I think a very important piece to start with would be a word. And we're going to talk about being imut. And imut is something that you'll hear a lot. You'll see it at the bottom of many emails. And imut is good in our language, but it's also used as a phrase to also say thank you. Even though thank you in our language is cheche hathech, it's easier to say imut or good. And you'll also see that when we're saying imut, sometimes our hands are up in the air. And when your hands are up in the air, that's a gesture in our culture of thank you. So cheche hathech, so our hands are typically raised in honor and appreciation. So those are just some of the teachings that you'll learn and some of the things that you'll see when you join our team and work in our community here. So in the following videos that you're going to be watching, you're going to be learning about the history of our people and learn about our culture and our ways and why things are the way they are and why our people sometimes react in the way that they react and why we have chosen the route of self-government over the Indian Act. So some of these videos can be hard to watch or hard to listen to, as our people have survived many changes and some atrocities to be where we are today. Just behind me here, you can see a picture of the Great Fire that happened that ravaged our community back in the early 1900s. Our people were displaced from our main village site, which is where the current mill sits in the city. And during that displacement, our people were kind of dispersed throughout the area and the region. And many of our people ended up here in the community of Tishosum. So Tishosum was another village site that our people lived at, but when we were moved from T-Squat, this became IR number 1, and this became the main village that our people lived at, and we still live here today. So during the Indian Act days, we had 6 reserves that our people would frequent, but mostly everybody lived here at Tishosum, and still to this day, we don't have anybody living at any of our other former reserve lands. But through the treaty process, we have taken on a number of pieces of our territory back. And we are one of the largest land holders in the area and in the region. And having said that, we only took back 1% of our entire land base in our traditional territory through the treaty. So it's really important to understand the concept of land and land ownership and how we came to be here on this piece of land, and how we are just working on regaining that connection to the other pieces of our territory and relearning a lot of the skills that were lost when colonization happened here and when our people were forcefully removed and taken to residential schools. Some estimates for population were over 14,000 people living here around the 1400s, and prior to that could have been anywhere from 30 to 60,000 Tla'amin people living in this territory. And in the early census days, in the late 1800s, there was about 37 Tla'amin people left. So our people were hit hard by disease, hit hard by colonization. They were displaced a number of times. And we've been rebuilding ever since then. And I'm proud to say that, we are a treaty nation. We have taken back a large chunk of our land, even though it only equates to 1% of our entire traditional territory. We've affirmed our rights and our title to this area, and we've created many opportunities for our nation to grow. So it's really important to have the right people as part of this team and have an understanding of that history so that you can do your job better and you can understand where we're coming from and understand where we're trying to go and be part of that canoe, be part of that journey with us, and have a piece of that understanding, because this is a very special time for our people. And this is a generation that wants growth, that wants sustainability, that wants to see our people do well and do good. And it's really important to be part of this team and be part of that growth and part of that opportunity, and to paddle in the same direction and all go in the same direction together. So culture in the Tla'amin community unfortunately was lost. In the Great Fires that happened, a lot of our ceremonial regalia was burnt in the house fires. But prior to that, when the church came in, they also burnt all of our ceremonial regalia, all of our masks. They prohibited us from dancing and singing. And being in an area that was easily colonized, it led to pretty much the extinguishment of any songs and dances within our territory. So back in the day, there were a couple of youth who started a drum group and started bringing back some of the songs and dances. And we're looking everywhere for any hint of any Tla'amin songs that might exist somewhere. So a lot of our songs and dances were borrowed from other nations for a number of years while we regained that identity and found the ability to create our own songs. And a big part of that revival came through the canoe journey. So participating in tribal journeys, canoeing to other territories, and seeing the rich culture of other communities really helped Tla'amin find its footing in giving birth to the culture again, and finding our identity, and finding out what our dances would have been and what our songs would have sounded like, how to carve canoes again. We carved a canoe called ganos back in the day, and ganos in our language means treasure. And that treasure is what brought us back to our roots and allowed us to join in on these canoe journeys and really find the help we needed to regain our cultural identity. So it's been a journey, and it's a journey of constant learning, and it's a journey of importance for us to regain our culture, regain our language, find our songs and our dances. And I'm proud to say today that we have, over 13 of our own songs that were composed by Tla'amin youth and Tla'amin people. And it took us taking ganos out to some of our traditional sites in Oakover Inlet and some of our old areas we used to live in to pick up those songs. And throughout our territory, there's shell midden gathered in very important places, and that shell midden is where our songs live. Those are the bones of our people. That's the food that they ate. And when they laid to rest there, they took a lot of that culture and that history with them. And it's up to us in this generation to reconnect with those lands and get out to those areas. And that's where they'll find strength. That's where they'll find their teachings and their language and the songs. So connecting language, connecting culture, all ties back to the land. It ties back to the water. It ties back to our traditional teachings, which are disappearing. With the harvesting of salmon, there are certain words that are spoken. And when our people aren't harvesting salmon or don't have the ability to go and cut salmon with a whole family and multiple generations, there's critical pieces of our culture and our language that are disappearing when we don't have access to those resources anymore. We don't have salmon in the abundance that we used to have. We don't hunt seal anymore. So there's certain pieces of language that disappear with the disappearance of certain species and certain ways of living on the land and harvesting opportunities. So again, being a treaty nation, it's about taking control of those resources and trying to ensure that they're there for future generations so that that language component doesn't disappear and that harvesting practice doesn't disappear. So the importance of culture is something that this Executive Council takes very seriously, and it's enshrined in our Constitution, which is another piece that I would like staff to be really aware of when they work for our nation, is that we have a Constitution that was passed by the community, and a big piece of that Constitution is our ta'au, and our ta'au is our teachings, and our teachings is what everything is supposed to come back to. So everything that we do is guided by that Constitution. Every law has to come through that process that enshrines the pieces of the Constitution are followed. And the backbone of that Constitution is our ta'au and our teachings that were passed down by the elders. So it's a piece that I think should be really focused on when you're onboarding and coming onto the nation to work with us, is to really understand that Constitution and what it means for our people. And it's there and designed to ensure that everything is done by our teachings using our ta'au. So when you're joining our team here at Tla'amin, it's important to know the cultural resources, who's who in the building. We have a cultural manager, Drew Blaney. Losa Luafoa is on Executive Council. She's in the building all the time. Denise Smith, our Lives and Resources Manager, she has a lot of really good words to share and experiences to share about our culture. And if you're ever struggling, reach out. You know, we do have Tla'amin Community Health Services. We have counselors here. And once again, I would just like to thank you for joining our work family here and jumping in this canoe with us and joining us on this journey on the path forward to self-government and to a brighter future for the Tla'amin people. And for us, we're looking 210 years out, so we're looking 7 generations. So understand that our planning and where we want to go looks far out and looks over 200 years out for those 7 generations of people. And my hands are raised to you in honor and appreciation for coming to our community and joining our team, and wish you well, and have a great day, and imot.